seems like my test group loved hearing what old Serbs believed in, so here's another string of barely interconnected stuff I remember hearing or reading. Do you have any idea what kravaj is? Well, neither did I until just recently. I had to look up approximately every third word, and I still recall only like 2% of them. So, enjoy this video brought to you by my ever worsening eyesight, the nice people of the National Library of Serbia's Cooperation, and Professor Sreten Petrovic, whose books I use as primary sources of information to fill in gaps in my knowledge of Slavic culture stored in my already maximum capacity loaded tiny brain. From what I gather, Serbian people were split into various cults. I figured that came to be because of the love Serbian people have for splitting into small, smaller, and even smaller groups, and then passionately hating all other groups, until eventually they divide into individuals, and sometimes even have one part of themselves hate all other aspects of themselves. Lovely, isn't it? Ironically, if you look at the shield on Serbia's coat of arms, it appears to have four Cyrillic letters S that allegedly stand for the phrase Samo sloga Srbina spasava, only unanimity saves the Serbs. They say the day all Serbs unite will be epic, but also never. Anyway, those cults could have been focused on one of the gods, abstract concepts, or legit objects believed to possess magical power. Those could be the cult of ancestors, or the dead, the cult of nature, trees, stone, earth, water spring, moon, sun, stars, and similar. For example, old Serbs used to believe their ancestor spirits lived in old trees. Those trees could also be home to a god, so any old oak tree was believed to house god Perun, and that tree was never to be messed with, like any other old tree pear, ash, beech, apple, walnut, etc. You shouldn't cut it, climb it, sleep under it, eat its fruit, not even use its fallen branches for fire. They would leave a wooden cross and flowers around it and would often visit those trees, as they served the purpose of primitive form of shrines. Mind you, the wooden cross was something apparently every Serbian house had, an ancient wooden idol people used before Christianity. The oak tree symbolized sturdiness, power, longevity, height, both spiritual and physical, supreme celestial deity, and thunder god's tree. A lot of places' names today can be linked to Perun's name, and there is even a flower called Perunica. One of the beliefs that I haven't heard someone today honor is that once you leave your house, you don't turn back in case you forgot something at home. This was due to their belief that spirits follow you when you walk, and if you turned around, you would likely see them, which was not good. For the same reason, the bride never looks back on her wedding day, and you should never look back when crossing an intersection. Do you think the more modern day belief that you always have to carry your keys when you leave your house, otherwise it symbolizes that you're not coming back home, might have had something to do with this older belief? Speaking of intersections, however, old Serbs believed them to be of great significance in the world of magic. They considered them a sort of portal to the other world, seeing that they believed in the afterlife and the place where evil forces reside during nighttime. Intersections were the best place to perform rituals for a sick person's health restoration, undoing bad spells thrown at you, ritual sacrificing, and more. Most of these were performed at night. To this day, you'll hear grandmas tell you to never ever cross an intersection diagonally, as it was believed the next person to walk through would pick up whatever was left there. In a nutshell, everything related to decorating with wreaths, burning incense, or candles was despised and prohibited by the Christian Church, but apparently Serbs would not give these traditions up, and the Church eventually decided to accept them. There will be more of these instances I'll mention here and there in other videos, as Serbs incorporated the Christian faith into their pagan one. To make all this a bit easier to understand, here's what I noticed. Whenever you think to yourself, why did I used to do that, or why do they still do this? It's likely that we don't know the exact answer, but it goes against the true Serbian characters to admit you don't know something, so just accept this as an answer to all similar questions that might pop up in your head. Jinx prevention. We simply say protiv uroka for all acts that make no sense, like wearing a red thread around your wrist, wearing a piece of clothing inside out, wearing mismatched socks, walking around looking disheveled, and more. All sorts of weird behavior are justified as being in the name of jinx prevention. Obviously, old Serbs were aware people rarely truly wished you well, and as they believed you could curse someone only by looking at them, they would do a lot of weird stuff to distract the malevolent gaze. Some examples of this would be piercing children's ears, regardless of their gender, so that people would be distracted by the earring and not look at the child, or simply feel jealous of someone having a child, as that would also be considered evoking bad energy and sending it towards the child. I'll try to do separate videos on customs related to childbirth, weddings, slava, and death. But you'll define with knowing simple facts for now, like they believe there are no coincidences, that words and actions have magical power, certain things like hay attract souls or spirits, but iron and salt keep evil forces away. and they really feared their deceased household member would turn into a vampire, so they tried to prevent it by all means possible. There would be like 20 different actions they would perform to make sure that doesn't happen, and a whole lot of plan Bs all the way to even plan Zs in case that person did manage to turn into a vampire to make it difficult for them to actually cause harm. So any silly little action you encounter has great potential of either being protiv uroka or protiv vampira. People still use the phrase šta vampirišeš for someone who's active at night, which I personally find hilarious. An interesting thing I stumbled upon that I never heard before is that a woman that never bore a child was extremely valuable, considered to be capable of wielding powerful magic. Prestigious, even. She would have been the first to do everything, and then others would follow. If they were to clean, cook, or make something, she'd have to start first, as they believed she was the one to make sacrifice to the gods in terms of an unborn child. Apparently, if a firstborn didn't survive long, they wouldn't mourn much, as they believed that was the sacrifice they made for strong and healthy children to be born later. As it turns out, lots of children died early on in childhood, and people developed rituals to perform in hopes of securing a child's health. They believed in countless reasons children died, and one of them was that the switch from matriarchy to patriarchy angered the gods and made them take away children until the mother decided to perform a ritual in which the baby was brought into the intersection. Since we know intersections were the best place to make a sacrifice to gods, a baby born in a family where children had often died is ritually left at the intersection. The gods would accept the offer and give the child a new life, having sent an unknown person down that road. That person who first comes by and picks up the child becomes the child's kum or kuma, or godfather. That person could be anyone, of any age, appearance, status, gender, or nationality. They purely believed that that person represented the child's luck and happiness. Much to many people's surprise, old Serbs not only saw women as no lesser beings, but it seems in some instances they favored women over men. They would try and keep girls at their parents' house as long as they could. That gave them time to train girls properly for any task, job, or situation that may befall them when they get married and start running their own household. Men, on the other hand, were thought to be at the prime age for marriage at 15 years old. If they turned 18 and came back home from serving the army type of obligation, yet they were still unmarried, they were avoided in public under the assumption that something wasn't right with them. The power the matriarch figure held is noticeable in the wedding custom, where the bride makes sure to skip the doorstep when entering her new husband's family house, and she loudly hits the top of the door frame using her right fist to grab his ancestors' attention and let them know she had arrived and will from that point on be in charge of the household. Believe me, there's just too much to say on this topic of old beliefs and customs, so I'll try to split them up somehow. Most of them are based on the same principles, so you'll be able to connect the dots and figure out the reason behind certain actions or rituals. After all, if you can't, it's probably jinx prevention.